I presume anybody object to this being recorded? I'm not going to say anything outrageous. I'm not planning to anyway. In fact, what I really want to do is actually hear from you, because I do a lot of talking, as you know, so I need to just shut up and listen to you a bit more. So, firstly, no official word from the IDBF, as you probably know. I think they're waiting for to see what the EDBF do. The EDBF are making a decision on the Europeans on the 15th, and if you know what's going on in Europe, France is locked down, everyone's locked down. UK's okay because we've got 50% of the population vaccinated, including me, which is great. So hopefully we'll get away with it, but everyone's very pessimistic about the Euros. And the word I've heard, not really grapevine, is that they're waiting to see what goes on with the Olympics. Now that's fine, but obviously, as you know, we can run, the organisation can run the Olympics without the crowd. The problem with dragon boating is the participants are the crowd, and it's a crowd sport, and you're sort of sitting in a boat inside personal and intimate space. So that's going to be a difficult thing, but we'll crack on anyway to see how it goes. Right, that's that. The monthly returns, I've just put them out on the Teams platform, sent it to Ness, so Ness will be sending out, but pretty much it's a pyramid and it's a sprint, but you'll see how it goes. It's easy. It's 250, 500, 750, 1,000, 1,000, 750, 500, 250, with 250 in between, and some minute sprints. And there's 2 pre-programmed things on the Ergo, which is pretty much a pyramid: 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 3 minute, 2 minute, 1 minute. There's a pyramid, and the other one is the 500 on, minute off. You'll see it. It's easy. Well, it's not easy. It's supposed to be hard, but hopefully you enjoy that. Right, that's that. Any questions on that so far? Brilliant. 2 things I want to talk to today. The first is pain and pain management, and the second is the back of the stroke. But the first thing, pain. Let me just give you a quote. Bruce Lee, Hollywood actor, obviously. Pain is only weakness leaving the body. And from years ago, when I used to be a paratrooper, no pain, no gain. Right. What do you think about that? I'm interested in your idea about where pain fits into high quality training.
Okay, I would divide it into 2 different distinct definitions. One is where that pain is informing you of a potential injury. You're doing something that will cause damage to your body. The second is when you feel like you can't get enough oxygen into your lungs and your head is about, or your lungs are about to explode, but you know you can drive through it, and you deal, so that in terms of the no pain, no gain, then you have to push it, and because you know that you can come out the other end of it when the pressure is off. Okay,
just dealing with the second one. So the first one, obviously, if you're doing something that's going to injure you or you're getting injured, then you're going to stop. So I'm really hoping that everyone is keyed into that and gets that. And overtraining and that sort of thing. If you're training 7 days a week, 3 times a day, you're going to get injured most likely. But just dealing with the second one and the amount of pain, hello Lee, that you're prepared to put yourself through.
Nice.
Just tell me what you think regarding that. We spoke about it in 2017.
Ask Liam, he did it on Saturday.
Okay.
I went through it too.
So when you're training or when you're competing, is it a necessary component?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, why?
It's the point at which you're stretching yourself to improve, to get stronger.
Okay.
Because if you remain in your comfort zone without feeling any pain, you're not going to improve.
Oh, right. So you're talking about, so there's progression and there's pain. Okay, fine. Well, you can put them together or divorce them, but certainly we probably all accept whatever sport you're doing, whatever discipline you're doing, in order to progress. If you do the same thing in the same day way, don't be surprised if you get the same results. So if you're pushing 100 kilos or whatever you're pushing, bench pressing, and you keep doing that for the next 5 years, in 5 years' time, you'll be able to push 100 kilos or less. Yeah?
Yeah.
But to progress, you've got to progress in a, okay, fine. But, okay, yes. So in terms of just refining it a bit more. So pain, so inflicting pain upon yourself in order to progress. Where does that fit in your particular, I say frame of mind rather than mindset, because they're different.
I mean, it's necessary as part of any type of training. I think if you want to improve and compete.
Okay. Okay. Karen. I won't ask Lee because he's eating a Nichols
Sorry
cake.
about that. I just had a delivery in between dinner and it's been a bit of a nightmare. Sorry.
Actually, I've got my dinner here as well, actually. But yeah, go on, Karen.
Yeah, so I have felt I don't feel pain all the time. Every workout I do, but it does. I mean, it's almost like it gives me a slight kick because I know how far I've pushed myself. I've pushed myself to the limit, but it also makes me look at adjusting what I've done beforehand. What maybe, like for example, my nutrition. Did I reach my pain threshold because I didn't eat well beforehand, or I'd done too much of something else before that? So yeah, it makes me look at quite a few areas.
Like what?
Well, like I say, nutrition, because I sometimes feel that I get to a certain level of pain and exhaustion because I've pushed myself so far, and need to look at not just what I'm doing, what I'm putting in my body, when I'm eating before I exercise, what I'm eating before I exercise, because otherwise I can feel physically sick from doing the exercise too. Okay.
There's another two things there. There's what I call depletion and there's pain. So for example, if I've done a couple of hard sessions, then I go out on my bike and I do X number of miles. Sometimes if you're pedaling along or whatever, and you are just absolutely, you're depleted. And I don't drink Coke, but it's the sort of time I pull into a garage and drink a can of Coke and carry on. Now that's like, I've burnt the candle at both ends, and I actually need a glucose sugar boost to get going. So I wouldn't say that's not pain for me. Is that a painful thing for you?
No,
that's just knackered.
There's a combination there where I've really pushed it as well.
Okay, I mean it's different for different people. I mean I love pain, but I appreciate I'm probably a bit crazy in that way, and that's the way the sort of training I've done in the past. It's about pushing, ridiculous. But that's just my particular history. But it's.
But when you say, what is actually physically hurting when you say pain then?
Well, when I was, the first marathon I ran in 1984, the week before, I went out for a 10-mile run and carried on running and ran a marathon. Ridiculous. Yeah, that's the sort of thing I do. When I used to do the Devizes Westminster canoe race, it's a 125-mile race. I go out and do a 70-mile run in a canoe as preparation. But to me, as a younger person, my idea was in order to achieve or perform, I had to break through a pain threshold. I don't think that now. I think differently now. And probably if I thought now, if I thought then as I thought now, I'd probably perform better. But I'm just interested in drawing this out, what the connection between high performance or optimum performance and pain. Now you mentioned nutrition. Nutrition is a very important part of it, obviously. If you haven't put the fuel in, you're not going to get the output out. Okay. Chris. Go on, yeah.
I think I missed the beginning of the conversation, and I'm sorry. And I don't know what the question was, but I think there's a definition between good pain and bad pain.
Right.
If you do a race, you can finish the race and you feel quite good after it. No matter where you come, you feel good after it. Or you can finish a race and you're obliterated for the next week. So there's good and bad pain, right? You've gone through different episodes there. And that's preparation. And that comes down to were you prepared? Did you know what you was able to do in that race? How was you thinking? All those different things come into it are you prepared to do a certain race and hurt yourself to win and come out of it okay? Or bad pain is like you're unprepared, but you kind of relying on this, that, and the other, and you've done this and done that, but you can go in it and you can do it, and you start to suffer because you was not prepared. You either wasn't hydrated, you didn't do the gym work, you didn't do what was necessary to get you to a certain level in order to know that you believe that you could actually finish the race and hurt yourself to the maximum that you know that you're prepared to do.
Right. So you've got two more things there. You've got conditioning.
Yeah.
Or the role of conditioning. So just linking to Liam's point regarding it's a necessary part. So if would you be happy to call good pain conditioning? Or is it more than that?
Yeah, well, it is. It's because you know that you've given everything and you was prepared. You've done the groundwork at the beginning before the race. So right. you know that you can do a certain mileage, a certain pace. You've done your gym work, you've done your interval work, and all the components have come together. And then you go and do your race. And at the end of the race, you gave it up and you hurt the maximum you can hurt. But it's not a bad hurt, it's a good hurt.
Right.
Because you actually did give the maximum your body could give.
Let me give you to see if I can understand. I think I understand what you mean.
Right, yeah, so, you put it in different words.
So I've got an ergo here. So I get on my ergo and I do whatever distance I do. I do a distance and I'm tapping along at say 150 split, whatever it's going to be. And I know fight and flight, because it's different part of your physiology and your psychology. In the last 10, 20 strokes, I can make my 150 into a 141. Because I can see the end. I can see there's only 20 seconds to go on this. So I can maximize my effort, get the stroke rate down in terms of per 500 meters. But is that painful, or is that just maximal effort? Which is a little bit, I say it's uncomfortable. It's discomfort as a result of maximal effort, or is it pain?
Well, the difference between a machine and a race is completely different. So if you are in the final, your 500-meter dragon boat race, right? It's not about that. It's about where you're at.
Right.
And how far you want to take it. How far is your brain saying I can go through this and take it to the max? I mean, there's different elements coming in there, which you probably know more about than I do. But like a race is a race and an erg is an erg. And they are very, very different aptitudes to what's going on. Very different. If that makes any sense.
And absolutely. So I'm interested in, I've got all sorts of stuff, but I'm not interested in telling you what I think, because I'm interested in what you think. Liam, so that's the link between conditioning and pain, and the difference between a piece of training kit and optimizing or maximizing and what's going on in a race. What's your take on that?
I think they're both pain during training and pain during a race are very different, I think. Because after a race, or it depends what's painful after a race, but after a race, you feel a lot better because you know you've put that effort in to be painful. But during training, I guess it's all because a lot of the training you do, well, at the moment is on your own. So it's the psychology of putting in the effort, getting that pain to improve yourself. And it's a lot harder when you train on your own. But if you're in a dragon boat and you've got a coach pushing you along, then it's another type of pain, I guess. But I think a race and training is very different types of pain.
Chris, what do you think?
Sorry, I switched the mic off. There's a lot of rain going on outside. I don't know if you can still hear me.
Right, Chris.
Well, I would go back a step slightly, and because I remember, there's always been that no pain, no gain. You have to push yourself and all this sort of thing. And then in the earlier days of training, it was all about you pushed yourself physically to get that, and that pain meant that you were achieving your goals in terms of training. I think now things are a lot more scientific. They're a lot more sort of worked out, so that your training program, your strength and conditioning program is being driven by the science and by the physiology and this sort of thing. And with that will come some pain. That means that, as Liam was saying, where you are pushing yourself beyond your normal comfort zone. I can walk past the erg, as I say, and it makes my heart go flutter every time I just walk past it and I see it, because I know, because I know that the pain that it will inflict every time you sort of get on it and pass. Yeah. But then, as we were talking about earlier, also there's that sense of achievement, and that whatever it is, the endorphins and the sort of hormones that come from having pushed yourself and done well afterwards. So you've got all those different levels. In terms of the training, you need to be able to push yourself, and you need to be able to sort of, again, where Liam is talking about the psychology of it all, where you're pushing yourself so that you know that you can do more when it comes to the race. You can push yourself harder when it comes to the race. Oh, the rain's going off.
Karen, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just struggling with the word pain, really, because for me, pain is that warning, and the rest of it is just like physical exhaustion. So I'm not quite understanding where the pain, what pain you're talking about, actually.
Well, I mean, the point is, I'm interested in. Well, I might as well tell you. No pain, no gain. I think it's total nonsense, absolute crap these days. Whereas my early days, that was absolutely my training mantra. If it didn't pain, if it didn't hurt really badly, and I got back totally broken, I didn't think I was training. And it's absolute. Well, it's not total nonsense, because you need to understand where your comfort zone is, as Liam says. But let me just bring Tristan in, and then I'll take it a bit further. So Tristan, what do you think? Is he there?
I am here, yeah.
Right,
I'm just thinking pain. Are we talking, right? Pain is, like you were saying earlier, like pain's not a good thing. So we're talking pain after, like sometimes when I go out training and then it hits me like the day after, every time I get out of bed, basically every day, like rolling out of bed. So is that the kind of pain we're trying to avoid, or is it pain doing the actual exercise? Because I know if I do sprints, I don't enjoy it, but there's going to be pain there, but it's not like a bad pain. But then pain after training, when I try and roll out of bed, that's a different type of pain. So which one are we going with here?
Well, I'm interested in what your perception of it is. I mean, really, the pain that's in the pain. Karen's right. It's not necessarily the right term. The discomfort, whatever it is, that during performance and the necessity for it in order to perform. Right. Is it good, or does it get in the way? Is it a bit of a red herring, so to speak, or is it necessity?
I don't know. I'm probably very much similar to what everyone else is saying. Like a little bit of pain is obviously going to be there to improve, but you don't want so much that it's going to be a hindrance, I guess. I can't really add too much more of what other people have said, to be honest.
I mean, the pain I'm talking about, when you gear up, so whenever you go to your maximum. So we're out in yesterday, first time in ages, we're out in an OC6 last night, and I'm going for it because I'm going to be training all through the winter anyway. And I was thinking about this. I'm thinking, well, when I'm gearing up in a boat, then I'm looking for, if I'm above level 4 heart rate, so 85%, 90%, that sort of area, then I'm looking for a certain effect in my body. So I can feel it in this tricep, in this, in that. This, if I'm not pushing with the leg, I'll come off the water. My hamstrings are singing, whatever it is with me. But if I'm paddling at my optimum or maximum, then I'm expecting to feel certain sensations. I wouldn't call it pain. I'd call it the result of working hard. And I like what Karen said, actually, because I make the distinction. And this whole idea of pain is a bad thing. Working hard and knowing you're working hard and knowing what your limits are and pushing beyond your limits, and I'll come back to races and training in a minute, is absolutely vitally important. So let me change the question. No pain, no gain, or pain with a purpose?
Pain with a purpose.
I may have mentioned this before, but the analogy I can think of, if I lit a little stove here on this desk, right, and there was a flame flickering away, and I said, Chris, can you reach out to your screen and can you just put your hand on the fire, please? What would you say? No, no, you'd probably
say it.
You'd say no, would you? You'd probably be very rude and say, well, what you know, no, Chris, just put your hand on the fire, or just reach into a fire and pick out some hot coals, and you're not a Buddhist monk, and you burn your hand. Okay. However, that's one. That's asking you to inflict pain. Say outside where Chris is now, say a car drives past, and it's a 4x4 or something, and it's full of kids, and it crashes into a tree stump, and the car catches fire, and there's some people in the car distressed. Yeah. And you know that you have the wherewithal to go and rescue them out of the car. But you know that you have to go up the car, smash the window, get them out, and the chances are you're going to inflict a certain amount of pain on yourself. You're going to absorb a bit of pain. Would you do it? Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But what's the difference in the two scenarios?
Purpose.
The motivation of why you're doing it.
Okay. So
Life and death.
well, okay, an extreme example and a daft story, but what I'm interested in trying to work out is, I think pain, discomfort or pain, whatever you want to call it, is a vital component, a psychological component, pushing yourself to your optimum, to your maximum, and in a race, going beyond that. And that's the role of the drummer and the helm and certain people in the boat, to pull that extra, whatever it is, that extra X factor out of you that's going to win the race or what. So that's, if, you know, people say in coaching, generally coaching, if the reason is not big enough, the excuse will be. Yeah, which is it's true of life, isn't it? Not just paddling or training in boats. So if the excuse isn't big enough, if the reason is big enough, the excuse won't be. So how do we get, and this is the crux of it, how do we get people to train with sufficient purpose to perform? Now, if you're doing a race, like Lee did a race at the weekend, and he's up against a load of young lads, and he said he come 5th or something within a few minutes of them. So you can see the personal incentive there, because that's Lee, one of the old and bold of paddling in Hong Kong, up against all these young bucks, and he's holding his own. So I can see that the motivation is really strong. Yeah. But how do you inspire a bunch of different, diverse people when you don't even know if there's going to be a competition? And that's the truth of it at the moment. But how do you do that in your teams? How do you find that motivation? How do you find the inspiration, or whatever you want to call it? How do you find people, get people to push themselves, go to the next level?
We motivate ourselves amongst ourselves to push against each other.
Okay.
I mean, there's still got to be a race. There's still got to be something where we need to have a target or a goal.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would agree in that I'm working with a lot of people here who have never raced before. So I have been organizing a few, even with just 2 boats, that you're pushing again, you're racing those two boats, so that the people who have never actually raced, they get an experience of what it is like to have that other boat pushing up against you and challenging you, and then they come back saying, right, now I understand a bit more, now I want to push myself a bit more.
Right, because they may not have raced boats, but they will know, they will have competed with people they may have,
yeah. But
So
it's just putting that into that context, and then and as Lee's saying, the motivation then.
Okay, Karen, changing the context, going away from pain and call it now pain or discomfort or getting outside your comfort zone for a purpose. Does that make any difference?
Definitely. I was just going to say on the last point, we're all very competitive, and I quite like seeing what other people are doing, because it inspires me to work hard. So if someone else has been, I don't know, doing a 20K on an OC1 or whatever they've been doing, I quite like to see that, or their times on the erg, because being new to the erg, if I see rough times of what other people are doing, it gives me something else to aim for, because I'm thinking that's what I need to be achieving.
Right, okay. Tristan.
Okay, are we talking about am I talking about the building the competition or the pain and discomfort thing that you just mentioned?
Both. Pain, discomfort, both really.
I think certainly, talking about what we said there, bringing everything in that we talked about, that we mentioned about racing in, like, we've been out in the OC6s, and it's been quite good when you've got two of those racing against each other. And we do the same with Stormies on a Saturday morning. We usually have the girls and the boys boat, and it's always like have that little competition. But I did like what Karen was saying there, is like seeing what everyone else is up against and seeing if there's like a ranking. It's good to just compare yourself and see where you fit, and then how you can put yourself on, which kind of leads into that pain, discomfort, pain with a purpose. In training, if you want to say, if there was a top 10 and you thought about what you need to do to get into that top 10, then you're going to push yourself that a little bit more, and that's why I think it's good to have, like, just to see what everyone else is doing, and then you can think about, well, can I push myself to get to where they are, and then use that as a motivational tool. But I think they're both kind of tying together, really.
Okay, so the big ego element into it, which is a fairly natural thing. Well, there isn't it? Because you'll see, irrespective of whether somebody's 100 kilos or 50 kilos, then you want to be top dog, or hold your own at the very least to get. Of course you do. Fine. Yeah,
you want to see
how you in your various teams, how you tie that in to the whole. Because I mean, nobody here lacks personal motivation or personal discipline to go and train, but actually getting a whole bunch of people to do the same thing in the same way and think in the same way, whilst being individual as well, is quite a difficult and interesting, rather difficult prospect. Okay. Any last thoughts on that before I move on to another subject? It's something that exercises me a lot, actually. How you get people to,
I don't know if this is related, but we all have our favorite races that we won, right? There's over the years, and there's been a lot of years, and you have like maybe 3 or 4 races that you always remember as the classic race that you won, and you'll never forget it because it made you feel differently about all the other hundreds of races that you did. And I got not many, but a few of those, like maybe 3 or 4. And one that sticks out in my mind, I'm going to go into it, but it's like the heat race, and it was 100 meter, it was an 800 meter race. We went out and our rating was too fast, and we did this and we did that, and it was I think I put more energy into that than walking around the world 6 times, right? It was absolutely diabolical. But we got into the final. When we got in the final, we talked about it, and we said, the rating was too high. We need to bring it down. We need to get a better catch. We need to get more power on the front. And we talked about all the elements that you need to do in order to create more boat speed and bring down the cardio factor, and to put power from the core rather than this, that, and the other. Like all those elements that you talk about, we put into it after talking about it. And it took a lot of driving to do that during the race, like holding rating down and stuff. And the result was we won it. We won the race, and it wasn't no shit race. It was a big race with lots of money involved in China. And it's like, I probably spent or expelled the same amount of energy as I did in the heat, except it was a good race. It felt good. But you probably expelled more power, more energy, more cardio, VO2 max, all the rest of it was all there, but it just came out in a different way, in a way that makes you win, if that makes any sense.
Would the word be focus?
Well, it was about sort of technique in and using rating as opposed to going cardio to bring up the speed of the boat, which we did, which was wrong in the heat, and we needed to keep the rating down and keep the focus on the power, which is tied into the catch, to make the boat speed stay there over a longer distance than, say, a 200 or 300 meter race. So there's more strategy involved and realizing what was going on. But the point really is that both were painful, but one was a good pain where you come out feeling that was a strong, hard race. And the other one was like, I need oxygen right now.
Right, and the oxygen now was the semi, or the one?
Yeah, the semi. Yeah, it was like a ridiculous race where the rating just keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up and up until you just die, but you finish, right? I don't know if that's related, but I'm just saying that they're both painful, but one doesn't kill you. The other one takes a week to get over almost. It was like that kind of difference in the way you feel after a race.
I mean, I do see a lot of people, not so much this last year, a lot of people who, when they're in the frame of mind where, pain is necessary, they'll do the most ridiculous things, and they're basically thrashing around, hurting themselves, but it's not actually productive.
Yeah,
so that's the reason I asked about focus. If you can be disciplined and you've got your technique tied down as much as possible, and you can focus that and do all that and get into the discomfort, uncomfortable zone, then it's more productive. But it's not just a case of just raw pain. It's a focused precision point. We talk about whether your paddle is a weapon or a musical instrument, and it depends who's paddling. Sometimes it's both, isn't it? If it is a weapon, it's a precision point. It's a martial arts weapon rather than a club. That sort of thing. Okay. Let me. I'm going to come back to this because I'm really interested in your points on this. One other thing, because I've only got another 20 minutes to go, so I'm not going to run you too late. Back of the stroke.
Right.
What's going on the back of the stroke? So most people, we talk about catch, and we've talked a lot about catch, and we'll continue to do so. If you've got a good catch, strong catch, whatever you catch on the front, you keep. You've heard stuff like this. You'll probably have different terminology for it. Keeping really positive all the way through, and then some sort of extraction at the end. So that back end, and when I say back end, let's say the front of the stroke is the catch to mid-thigh. So in outrigger, where you can be coming out. But of course, the dragon boat, you take it a bit further back. So what's going on in that last section? It's probably a third of the power phase of the stroke. Have you thought about it? So Tristan, what's going on with you when you're paddling? So you've got a strong catch, positive catch, driving the boat forward. So how does it work with you?
Back of my stroke's not great, to be honest. I kind of hang there. So I'm just something I need to improve on. I don't know. I'm just trying to think. It's so long since last time I was in the dragon boat was 2 weeks ago. I'm trying to think. That was the first time about a year. So I'm just trying to go through it. It's just, generally like bending the arm and then bringing it back forward, I think.
If you drew it in the air, what would say this is the catch?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it goes in the water, and there's the catch there.
Yeah.
And then what happens? So that's your catch there, your strongest part. And then what happens to the power after that? Does it stay flat? Does it drop off? Does it go down there? Does it sort of fibrillate?
Or going through from the catch all the way through, or?
Yeah. So just describe it for me. From there, then what happens? So the entry, catch, You come through
Yeah.
this 90-degree point. So that first part is the catch part, and that top
Yeah.
of the curve is where the blade is 90 degrees, so you can deliver most power.
Mhm.
So if you're into the sine and cosine is 0, so that's the point. So what happens after that? Everything from 90 degree in the water to extraction.
So you're kind of taking some of the power off, right? And then
Are you?
I don't know.
Oh, not fine. Just what's your? How have you been taught? How would you? If you were telling me,
I'm gonna
not
be careful
happy
now.
to be
So
told.
if Vicky hears about this, she'll go mental. I don't know. Someone else can do.
Not here.
No,
She might
what
watch
do
a
you
recording.
what do you think should be happening? So what's your understanding of it? That's what I'm getting at.
I'm stuck. I don't know if anyone else wants to answer.
Okay. So, Chris. So what's it all about?
I think I learned the most about the back of the stroke when we would do the whatever heavy, light, heavy drill.
Okay.
And again, going back over all the different coaching techniques and different things we used to do, so much was focused on the catch and that initial power, and then out by the middle of the thigh and this sort of thing. And then when we moved into doing that heavy, light, heavy, and everything else, you realize that there was this back of the stroke where you could still get some power, but making sure that you were still out before you were going negative and starting to push the boat down into the water, so that you're not pushing the boat down and you're keeping
Right. So the
up.
back of the stroke. Absolutely. When I say back of the stroke, I don't mean sweeping out the back like you do on a paddle.
Yeah.
The back of the stroke finishes at when your bottom hand is level with the hip. That's it. Yeah.
So I found doing that, breaking it down into the front half and the back half. Before, everything was always focused on just the front half of the stroke, and then you realize actually there was more that could be done, and that you could utilize the second half or last third of the stroke, that you could still get power from it there.
Okay. So for the benefit of anybody watching this, you mentioned light, heavy, light. What's that all about? So that's that sounds good to me. Probably because I invented it.
It was a drill. It was a drill where you would break the phase of where the paddle is in the water. You would break that down into two halves: the front half of the time that the paddle is in the water, and the second half. So once it's got almost to your thigh, mid thigh, and this sort of thing. So you would put power in at the first half and light at the second half. Then you would do a reverse of that. You would put light in at the first half, heavy at the second half, and then you would join it all together. And you realize the time that you had and the structure of that stroke, that you could actually put more in than you were doing originally. You learned more about what you would be doing with the stroke. Right,
Karen, are you following? I mean, I'm all due respect, because
I know. I'm sorry.
Karen, are you following this?
I'm struggling. Yeah, struggling slightly. I've never done that.
Right. Well, I'm going to explain it to you in a minute. So what Chris is saying, and excuse me for paraphrasing, but you've got the power phase of the stroke. The power phase starts at the catch. So blade in the catch. So I'm going positive catch. As it tracks through to that 90-degree point, that's where you can deliver most effective and efficient power, because you're pushing in that direction, boat goes in that direction. But it only stays there. It's rotational, only stays there momentarily. That's pretty much level with my heel probably in the boat. Then it carries on tracking, and we try and keep it positive and neutral as long as possible, and it tracks back negative at the end. It's got to come out. Yeah. So what we're saying is the front of the stroke is catch point through the power point just to mid thigh. The back of the stroke, which as Chris quite rightly says is the last third really of the power phase, is that little kick off the back, that little back portion where some people actually extract at the mid thigh and lose it completely. Yeah, that's what it's about. Chris, is that you following that? Yeah, right. Most people I've come across in the world paddle, what Chris is talking about is light, light. So front is light, back is light. Light, heavy. Front is light, back is heavy. Heavy, light, and heavy, heavy. Yeah. So you're breaking it down into two components. Most people in the world paddle heavy, light, as a matter of course, even when they're paddling as hard as they can, because they get the catch, they pull it through, and then sometimes as much of half of the stroke is lost because it's just a recovery, that it's an early recovery. Okay, now let me share a screen. Right, can you see that?
Not yet.
Can you see a graph? Can you give a thumbs up? You can see a graph.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Okay. This is me on 2018. This is on a data paddle, so a Merlin data paddle. So here we have, I'll break this down in a minute. It's just a load of lines on the chart, but just bear with me for a minute. Here you have, if you can see my cursor at the front end, you'll see the 0 is one little bar above the baseline, okay? So everything above that is a positive impulse. Everything below that is a negative impulse. And what we're saying, negative impulse is dragging the boat, okay? So here we go at the front, and this whole thing is about it's about a second long. It's short, just short of a second. There's one stroke. And when you do data paddle work, you do a set of 22 strokes, so they get a baseline. It's slightly different. It's measured in kilos as opposed to watts or Newton watts or anything. So in this case, I'm peaking around about 28, 29, 30 kilos on the front end. So there's the catch. Massive, well, massive, big uptake of power. And there's my maximum power point at the top. Okay, just there. It then tracks down, but have a look at this. There's a little hump at the end. Okay, so most people paddle up and it just trails down. It just trails down, keeps going down, keeps going. So basically, from this point here, power is trailing off. Okay, if you can see my cursor, yeah. What I'm proposing we start thinking about doing is pushing off the back. So basically, from mid-thigh, you've got an additional impulse. Now, you can only achieve this if you catch what you keep and you maintain the pressure all the way through. And what's going through your mind is this back of the stroke here is like a wall of water, okay? Or a brick wall. So what you're actually doing is at the catch, you're building pressure, and then at the back end, you're pushing off this wall, and it's the extra impulse that one, in my case, gives me another 8 or 10 kilos of power. And secondly, it drives the back of the stroke as well, or drives the air work. So the stroke still starts at the front, but you're launching off the back without ripping out the back of the stroke. Yeah? Do you get what I mean? So what I'm saying here is, if you can see it, so the front of the stroke finishes here. Okay, that's about mid-thigh there. So from mid-thigh point, you've got an additional drive forward, which doesn't go too long, which for me, I can generate slightly more on the left than the right, but pretty much 8 to 10 kilos. So I can pretty much generate another third of the power of my stroke. In fact, when I say I can, we all can. You can all do it. You're all human beings. And do you think if I can maximize my power there and I can get some extra kick off the back of the stroke, do you think that's going to be beneficial?
Yes.
Yeah. It's also going to be painful, actually, which is why we're talking about the first thing. Let me give you a better breakdown. That's actually what it looks like. You can manipulate it. And just so you know, if you can see this, the black line is the impulse. So you can see the definite positive impulse there. One's left, one right for me. So if you look at it, it's pretty much the same sort of thing. And they took place within 5 minutes. It says Tim Swift here, but I'm Tim Smith. He just recorded my name wrong. The other lines are pitch and roll of the paddle. Okay, and if you look here, between here and here is the air work. So that's the extraction. and that's the entry. So when you think about it, the paddle will be pitching a little bit as I take it through the air. But in terms of roll, what you want, and roll is the greenish line, what you want during your power phase is that roll to be as little as possible, because we know roll basically means slipping. Yeah, it's that action. So when it rolls, the paddle starts to slip. So when I paddle, what I try to do is I try to keep it as positive and neutral for as long as possible, but it's going to go negative at the back. Yeah, but that's basically, I mean, that's only 5, that's going to be about 8 further down. So what with me, peak power is stronger on the right, and the back of the stroke is a little bit weaker on the right. On the left, peak power is slightly left, but the back of my stroke is slightly stronger. So it evens out pretty much for me, and you'd be probably the same. So that's essentially what it looks like. That extra impulse of power there, that most people just let it tail off and you lose it. In the same way Lee was talking about a few weeks ago, using the body momentum to get a little bit more drive out the boat. This is another little tactic here to do that. Okay, that's what it looks like. So how do we train for that? Well, what I'd suggest, what I'd like you to do in your next time you're out in a single boat is just experiment with this. And all it is maintaining the pressure all the way through the power phase of the stroke, and on the back end, just give it an extra push. But you can't let it tail off. You've got to keep the pressure and put more pressure in. Yeah. Now the difference with this, you get it's a very, very anaerobic way of paddling. This probably wouldn't work for 2K. It could work for 1K, but you really have to be conditioned. This is a painful stroke. If you do heavy properly, I was going to swear then, it's very painful all the way. So you have to have a very high purpose in order to achieve it. Yeah. Now, one thing to bear in mind, this is really important, last few points really, because what I want to do is get people to do this and get some feedback from them. You know, I mentioned, you can't see my cursor, below the line is a negative impulse. Everybody has that, because when you think about it, at the back of the stroke, you don't just stop and lift the paddle out. It's going to go negative to a certain extent. So that 2 kilos of negative impulse is fairly normal. If you get somebody who's particularly inefficient, they can have up to 10 kilos of negative impulse if they're ripping out the back. And if you think about it, if you're putting 20 kilos on the front and taking 10 kilos off the back, then you're basically putting it on the front, taking it off the back. Yeah. So that's what I'm asking people to do. There will always be a bit of a negative impulse, and don't go beyond your hip. Otherwise, that line there is way down here. So the drill, as Chris mentioned, let me just get rid of this share. Are there any questions on that?
That's all good.
Just get rid of that. So I don't want to spend a lot of time just talking about the grass. We see that's what it looks like to get the extra push off the back. And the drill, as Chris rightly says, and I'll put some bit more about it. So you start off, you do it in sets of 10 or sets of 20, continuous paddling. So you start off, just warm up. So you're paddling, when I say light, something like 70%. It's a wrong term, but 70%, a low end, medium sort of aerobic sort of capacity. Nice, consistent, but get used to whatever you're putting on the front, carrying all the way through, making sure that power is consistent all the way through. Then you do the next 20, and you'll need something to call it. Then you'll do light and heavy. So a bit more effort on the front, and just do normal as you would normal, just let it trail off. So you understand where the front of the stroke is and the back of the stroke. So you've got that demarcation line. It becomes relevant then when you just reverse it. So your next set of 20 is light, heavy. So a nice efficient stroke, and then at that mid thigh, the extra impulse, light, just so you know the demarcation line. Okay, that's the whole purpose of that. So it's light, heavy, or efficient and heavy, and the last one is heavy, where you're heavy all the way through. But you can't just go into heavy, as Chris alluded to, because you've got to know where that point is. You've got to know where the front of the stroke finishes and the back of the stroke starts to know what the effect is. And what you'll find, when you get a crew that does it efficiently, you actually have a 2-part catch. And you can feel the second impulse. And if you've got 20 people doing that, you're basically kicking off the back, which gives you that extra, maybe a third of your power. And also it initiates the back of the stroke. So people often talk to me about back of the stroke. Do I break at the wrist? Do I break at the, and I think it's nonsense. You know, at what point? You don't do anything. You keep the power all the way through, and at the hip, it comes out. Yeah. So I worry about the forward impulse rather than whether I'm going to do this or going to do this or whatever I'm going to do, or sweep out all the rest of it. Yeah. So that's what that's about. I hate this term. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Gotcha.
But you've got to try it and see what works for you. But the most important thing, as I think Chris mentioned, is don't confuse it by ripping out the back. Because in a single boat, especially a light boat, then you'll still get some impulse forwards, and you'll think, well, that's why I'm pushing this up a bit harder. So you've got to discipline yourself to at the hip, because when you get into a dragon boat, what you're going to do is create a big bit of cavitation that's going to come up 3 seats behind. So whilst in a single boat, that will provide some motive force for you, and it's only you, and the boat might only be 10 kilos. In a 2-ton dragon boat, it makes a big difference. So the third things to focus on is the halfway point and the back of the stroke, and just getting that extra impulse from mid-thigh to hip. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. That's all I've got to say. Can you give that a go?
Yeah, totally.
Right, and I mean, what we're trying to do is trying to arrange some.
I'm a big believer in light and bitter.
I missed that. You're a big believer in what?
I use it a lot. In the light and bitter. I use it a lot.
Yeah,
in training.
it really it does. I mean, when you're in a dragon boat and you think, well, blimey, that's another bit of power that we've not been exploited. Yeah.
No, I mean, I kind of break it down. Going back to outrigger, it's like when I say I tell people there's more than one stroke that we do. It's like, you know, obviously it's all up front, and the faster the boat goes, the more you stay forward and still keep the front end and you release earlier. But if you want to get more from a stroke on a lower rating but keep the same kind of power and hull speed, then you need to go for a longer stroke in the water. Hence, you're using more of the back end of the stroke. And and this might be related, but in order to do that, you tend to, because it's a lower rating, you will sit up a little bit more so that the blade is still square in the water as opposed to angles on the release of the blade. So it's all about angles, staying forward, sitting up a little bit more, sitting up back a little bit more, but not too far back, in order to keep the top arm behind the front arm, to keep the blade at an angle, to hold it all the way, to keep the catch basically all the way through the whole stroke, which comes back, and then you've got what we call, or what I've called before, as a bounce in the finish, you know, boom, and then you're back into the hip drive going forward.
Yeah.
But so there's a few different, they're all connected, few elements there, all connected.
Last points from me before I just go around the room. I don't really talk about, I mean, it's semantics, but I think it's sometimes important in terms of terminology. I don't really talk about release. I talk about spring forward.
Right.
Because it's just the way I do it. I mean, if it works for you, really, I don't like talking too much about what's going on at the back of the stroke, because it's not about that. It's about how I'm getting forward. That's just totally my take on it. That's all. But the other thing, last thing I'll ask you, for those of you outrigger paddlers, you know, when you do your changes, your huts, you change from one side to the other. Whatever you're doing, whether you're changing every 16, 15, 20, 50, whatever, on the hut, what sort of stroke is that? So you're just about to change. Obviously, that's your warning for the next change. You do your stroke, hut, and I'm going to change over next time. What sort of stroke is that hut stroke? So I hear the hut. What sort of stroke is that?
With regard to what? What do you mean?
In terms of strength, power, length.
Well, for me personally, it's probably the strongest stroke.
Right. Okay, Chris.
A lot of people like to think of it as a rest stroke, but if you're in a race, it should be a strong stroke. It should be a strong stroke.
It
yeah,
should
to
be the
help you.
strongest stroke for a number of
Yeah.
reasons. Firstly, because so when I mean for me, and I was doing this, I was just reminding myself yesterday because out in the OC6, and you're watching people, and they know it's every 14, every 16, whatever it's going to be, and you can see they hear the huts, and they just relax into it. It's
Yeah.
a short stroke, and you're thinking, no, that's got to be a long. It's like the spring off the back.
Yeah.
So what initiates the next set, whether it's 16, 14, whatever it's going to be, 20, that's initiated by a strong stroke. And it also works because when you change, sometimes people fumble a bit or whatever. So you make sure you've got a big impulse to soak up any negative you might get, because that sort of thing. And it's the same. The reason I mention that is because the frame of mind rather than the mindset on that strong hut stroke, if you like, is the same as on the back. If you're not careful, you can think, I'm doing a 500 here, I'm at the World Championships, I must be good, so I can just take it a bit easy on the back. The whole point about heavy padding, no. And it's the reverse psychology. If you think it's going to be a weak bit, you put more effort in there. And you end up, and it's effing painful. It is, and that's it. It's good pain.
Back to pain.
That's the point. That's the whole point of this hour. It's good pain, but it's not. It's pain with a purpose. We're driving the boat forward as a team, as a unit, moving as fast forward as we can. It's not, oh, I'll sneak a little rest there, or I'll just go a bit easy there because I'm going to change over and nobody will notice. No, the way I think it, and this is me, everyone notices. And the way I paddle, and I'm sure Lee's the same, it's not down to me to win a race, obviously, but that's what's in my mind. And that just makes sure I try and stay on the top of my game as much as possible. And I fail as much as anybody else. So that's what I'm talking about. That's pain with a purpose. That's pain. So try it. Do some heavy, but do the light, heavy, and experience some good pain. And that's my gift to you this week. That's it.
All
Right, brilliant. Right, I've overrun by 2 minutes. Apologies. Quick,
No.
Karen, quick round the room. Any points? Any concluding points? Does that make sense as a swimmer paddler?
Yeah, it's the same as getting the arm out of the water at the end. You need to give that last push to lift the arm out, and it's something that you don't really teach as a novice sort of level. But when you're very strong and you've got everything else, you need to be able to that last bit to your stroke.
Yeah. What you'll probably find is as you go, like I'm sure it's the same in any other sport, you'll be working on the back and then you go back and work on the front and then you work on the middle and then the back again. It's continuous. And the day that you're perfect, you give up because you never get it. I haven't got there in 35 years. I mean, others might do, but nowhere near. Okay. Lee, last points from you, my friend.
No, I'm all good tonight, Tim. I was interesting. It was good.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Chris
I'm good.
and Tristan.
Nothing from me. Yeah, it's some good things to go and practice on this weekend if I get out in the OC one. So I'll see how that goes.
I mean, I bleat on about this stuff all the time. But what's really interesting for me is actually hear what you think about it. And that's yeah. I'm going to have 2 other conversations today about pain, and I'm sure I'll be shocked what I hear. But anyway, we'll see how it goes. Right, that's me done. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Catch you soon. Have a good paddle. Stay safe. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Okay, guys.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.